quite peaceful and quiet here. A few birds starting to sing at times, and certainly they're calling more frequently now. This is Sherwood Pines, used to be known years ago as Clipston Forest, but I'm walking through the majority of it to reach one particular spot, an area of Clipston Forest that I've certainly never been to before, but it's an area which may be of significant interest later in the year. The whole of the Sherwood Pines area is a huge site. It covers numerous square miles of Nottinghamshire countryside, which formerly made up a large chunk of the old Sherwood Forest. A lot of this area would have been heathland back in the day, but that heathland was ploughed up and room was made to plant plantation after plantation of commercial pines. And if visiting here, despite the fact that there are areas of broadleaf deciduous trees, you have to remember that Sherwood Pines is a working forest, and the pines are indeed a crop. Because it's a crop, there's lots of it, and in various stages of growth too. There's nearly always some areas of pines that are being felled and removed, and at the same time new areas being replanted where the felling has already taken place. In the area where I am now, there's lots of sounds of working machinery, so bear that in mind if you're visiting this area. And it is incredibly popular with mountain bikers, and of course we have centre parks just within about a mile or so from where I'm standing, so it's quite geared to outdoor activities. In terms of invertebrates and invertebrate recording, I understand that at some time there was some moth trapping that took place here, but on the whole I think that this area is incredibly poorly monitored and recorded in terms of invertebrates, and so there could be anything here, although with the majority of this area being pine plantation, the fauna species list is no doubt limited. I've still got quite a way to walk yet, basically sort of down here and then turn right and then turn left. Hopefully it'll stand us in good stead for when I visit here again, and I'll tell you once I get there the species that I'll be coming back to check to see whether it is still here or not. It's quite something. I'll tell you this much: it's a moth, and a big one. My next objective is to cross this. In order to do that, I need to just retrace my steps back about 20-30 yards and then pick up the forest track again. And hopefully there's a proper bridge to get over, because there's no bridge here and it's too deep. But this is Reneth water, or Rainworth water, depending from what part of Nottinghamshire you're from. But Rainworth water is pretty much like this all the way from Harlow Wood, just south of Mansfield, at the side of the A60, and it continues for several miles right through towards the east of Bilsthorpe. Quite a nice little river, but no access across it. Well, this is the area where I've been aiming to get to, a lot further than what it seemed on the map, to be honest, but this is it. It's quite a young area of pines a mix of pines and certainly silver birch, and no doubt there's a few oaks scattered around. But I'm going to walk a little bit further up the hill and have a good look at this place. Well, this is the area that I've been after reaching, and I must admit it's well worth the slog to get here. Over in the distance there, the hill will be part of the old Rufford colliery. But this area here, it's very different from the rest of Sherwood Pines. Very, very different. This area is actually not that far from one colony of glowworms here in Sherwood Pines. There are several colonies or sites for glowworms in Sherwood Pines that we know of, and just down where Rainworth Water was and further east along there is one such area. This could be another one, and it would be an area where glowworms haven't been recorded before, at least that we know of. But it's not glowworms that I'm here for today. This is a sort of a fact-finding mission, a sussing out job, so to speak, because for a number of years, certainly from 2017 to before the start of the COVID epidemic, this was a site that held breeding bedstraw hawk-moth. Now, any Nottinghamshire moth trappers watching this will be astounded, and they'll want to know, well, why don't we know about this? Why haven't we heard about such an event? Because to have bedstraw hawk-moths breeding, even if it's only for several years in Nottinghamshire, would be an absolutely astounding record, at least as far as I'm concerned. It's a rare moth in Nottinghamshire, always been purely a migrant moth, but bedstraw hawk-moth, as far as I'm aware, is still breeding now and established in the areas of sort of Norfolk and Suffolk areas. To have such a moth breeding here in Nottinghamshire is out of this world, to be honest. And it's one of those things nobody knows of. It's never been reported. The records have never been sent in, but I have the photographs. It's amazing. Right kind of soil for bedstraw hawk-moths. Obviously this is a light sandy soil, being typical of what forms the foundations for Sherwood Forest. So it's free draining. This is a warm south facing site as well. There's definitely got to be one or two visits here when bedstraw hawk-moth larvae are out and about, and hopefully that moth is still here. It is several years, since about 2020, that there's been no records, but no records because no one's looked for them that know about them, or because nobody's known anything about the moth being here at all. And I can't divulge the location of where this moth was breeding, maybe still is. It's alright, I'm quiet because I'm thinking, and that's why there's all the smoke. I like this little spot. I can see why it's not broadcast, and this is an interesting bit of heathland. I've seen a lot of heathland, and most of the heathland in Nottinghamshire. I can't remember anywhere else quite like this. It's been maintained and cut by a tractor with a gang unit on to mow it and keep it at this kind of height and it's quite a big area where I am. There's very little evidence of scrub here, and the heather is also kept short, although there's not much heather here. Obviously at one time it was bare ground, and there's a good collection of mosses here. Aside from having bedstraw hawk-moth here at some time or currently, this little site shouts rarity to me. There could be one or two very interesting little bits here, and it's somewhere that I have to come to again, other than to look for larvae of bedstraw hawk-moth. I'm glad I've come and had a look at this. Who knows what could be here? What an interesting little spot this is. It would be fantastic for the Nottinghamshire fauna if bedstraw hawk-moth is indeed still here, but it's still fantastic anyway to know that it's bred for several years in the county, seemingly with very few people knowing anything about it. It'd be great to find it again in larval form, at least during the course of 2024. It certainly would be a personal highlight for me, and for Nottinghamshire to have a former migrant, or what is still technically a migrant species, breeding in Nottinghamshire for several years, much as it has done in eastern counties of England for a number of years, would be absolutely tremendous. Something very much to look forward to, coming back here in a few months' time to look for the larvae, hopefully tucked away nicely at the top of some rosemary willow herb, quite possibly along this very ride.